Hello? Guys, good to see you. Want to start, every week we'll welcome our Racine campus and Kenosha campus. Always glad to have you joining us. And those of you who watch online every week, hello to you. I know we've got such a faithful crew, a faithful, online church is really what that is. And so thanks for every week joining us. And then to those in the room with me right now, they're like a bunch of trained monkeys. Like, now's the time. You know, we're good to go. Guys, today is a great day to be here because we are in the middle of a series that we're simply calling For. And the heart behind this series is that as individuals and collectively, really as a church, it ought to be our goal. It ought to be our ambition. It ought to be our drive. It ought to be what we're just moved to in life, to be known by what we are for rather than by what we are against. Right? Because it's easy to be known by what we are against. You can choose anything in any topic, in any individual, and you could just say, I'm against them, and then point out all the reasons you're against them. I get that, right? When my kids were little, I used to take them to a place called Chuck E. Cheese, which I'm guessing you've all been to before. If you haven't been there, just picture a casino for kids with a 7-foot rat walking around, because that's pretty much what Chuck E. Cheese is. And it's a very unique experience, of course, and it's also a total ripoff because you can be there for 3 or 4 hours playing games, putting money into machines, earning tickets. And at the end of the day, 700 tickets is gonna get you a whistle, right? It's gonna get you a deck of cards. You're like, oh man, you're really disappointed. But one of the games at Chuck E. Cheese that I know we've all seen before is a game called Whack-A-Mole, right? This is this game where you just take this mallet and you just go to town trying to take down moles. And the thing is, one mole will come up and you'll get it, and then 2 more moles will come up. And then you try to get both moles down, and then another mole comes up. It's just over and over and over. These moles just keep coming up. And for so many people, that is what life's become, right? They find something to be against, and they hammer at it. And it just seems like they spend a lot of their time talking so negatively about it, going after it, and then something else comes up and they're against that. And it's like every time you see their social media posts, every time you have conversations with them, every time you're hanging out with them in some environment, they're just against it. And it's so easy, right? You can be against Biden, you're against Trump, and you're against people wearing masks, and you're against people who don't wear masks, right? You just everything. You're against virtual education or in-person education. Here's the deal. We can find whatever we want to be against. And it's actually okay to be against some things. It's actually okay to oppose things. I get that. But I don't want for my entire life, and I don't want for our church to be defined by what we're against. Yeah, there's gonna be some things that as an individual, I'm gonna be against it. I just don't want my life defined by, I don't want my reputation to be what I am against and what I oppose. I want it to be what I am for. And when we study the life of Jesus, it's obvious that he focused on what he was for. Jesus was for people, and he was for the communities that they lived in. It's just obvious. He was for people and for the communities they lived in. And the reason we know this and the reason we can say it with confidence is every time we see Jesus interacting with someone, he was interested in them. He cared about them. He listened to them. He was compassionate to them. He was for the communities they lived in. In other words, he wanted the communities they lived in to prosper and to move forward and to succeed. And so in this series, we're talking about what it looks like to reflect the heart of Jesus in being for people and for our communities. Now, if this is gonna happen, there are a few things we're gonna need to prioritize. And we've been talking about this over the last few weeks, right? We need to prioritize unity. So if we want our communities to move forward, if we want our communities to progress, then we need to be for people of different backgrounds and different ethnicities and different levels of education and different political opinions and just all around people just who are different coming together and finding common ground and building friendships. And it's easy to point fingers and say, well, they should. No. It starts with us as individuals. If we build a diverse group of friends where everybody in our network and in our group of friends doesn't think and act and talk and vote alike, let me tell you, we're making progress. We're making progress. Another thing we need to prioritize if we are for our communities is we need to be for hope. There's enough voices of despair in our world. And so if we're for our communities, we're going to be voices that say, despite what the present circumstances look like, we believe that in some meaningful way, the future can be better than even the present. So today what I want to do is I want to talk about how if we are for our communities, one of the things we want to prioritize is this thing called healing. Healing in our neighborhoods and in our families, healing in our schools, healing in our businesses, healing in our minds and bodies, healing in our hearts, healing in our relationships. And I know that for some, the word healing is kind of a trigger word, right? Because you're picturing weird Christian TV, and you're picturing this miraculous type of thing that's just so far outside of your thinking, it's just hard for you to accept. Or maybe for you, it's you picture something that you don't totally understand, and it just seems like it would be magical of sorts, and so it's just not easy word for you to accept. But if we are for our communities, we need to be for healing. We need to be for restoration. We need to be for deliverance. We need to be for people finding freedom and liberation from the things that have held them hostage. Now, I could spend our entire time together talking about how you and I can be agents of healing in our community. And I think there would be a lot of value in that. But here's the reality. We cannot truly be agents of healing in our community if we are not healed on the inside. It starts with us. And the good news is that when Jesus talked about his purpose, here's what Jesus said in regarding his time here on this earth. He said, God has sent me to proclaim that captives will be released and that the oppressed will be set free. That's what Jesus said in regards to his time on this earth. He says, God has sent me to proclaim that captives will be released and that the oppressed will be set free. Whatever it is inside of you that brings you pain and deep hurt, I want you to know God does not take joy in your suffering. God's ultimate plan, his ultimate desire is to actually free us from the pain that imprisons us. And that ought to be encouraging to every single one of us, because as humans, we will inevitably go through seasons of life, or we will experience things in life that cause us tremendous pain. Right? Pain is just a part of life. There is no such thing as a pain-free life. Pain is universal, and it is inevitable. And when you begin to follow Jesus, your pain doesn't automatically go away. Jesus does not eliminate all the pain in our life. He transforms it. He gives purpose to it. He brings meaning out of it. And hopefully all of us can get to a point where we eventually look back and we can see the significance of our pain. But as long as we are on this planet, we will have pain. Now, for some, that pain is going to come from verbal abuse or emotional abuse or sexual abuse. For others, it's going to come from ridicule or criticism. There may be a season in your life where you're on the receiving end of prejudice or racism. There may be times in your life where the pain that you experience is the result of the actions of others completely outside of anything that you said or did. Maybe it is betrayal. There are different types of pain that we go through in this life. And as long as we live here on this planet, we're going to experience pain. And if we don't take time to heal, what happens is that pain amplifies. It's like anything else in life. If we ignore it, it gets worse. So if you ignore your lawn all summer long, it doesn't mow itself. Right? You're going to have some neighbor that's talking about you and gossiping to other neighbors because of what your lawn looks like. If you decide, well, I'm not going to do any maintenance on my house, even if it's just little things, it's not going to fix itself. Things get worse over time. And when there is pain in our life that is undealt with, it doesn't just go away. Often it gets worse. And then what happens is we bring that pain. We bring the anger that's caused by that pain, the anxiety that's caused by it. We bring the addictions that are a result of our pain, right? The addictions to alcohol, the addictions to food, the addictions to maybe sex, the addiction to maybe overspending, whatever it is. We bring that into every relationship and every environment we go into. We bring the shame, we bring the insecurity, the people pleasing, the feelings of rejection. And so it would be absolutely irresponsible of us to ignore and downplay the pain in our life. And the good news for all of us is that God sees our pain and that God sees our hurt. And he wants to heal us. And he wants to restore us. And he wants to free us. And he wants to liberate us. In fact, one of the Hebrew names for God is Jehovah Rapha, the God who heals. God cares about every area of our health. He cares about our physical health. He cares about our emotional well-being. He cares about our mental well-being. He cares about the condition of our relationships. He cares all about it. In fact, King David of Israel writes this about God. God heals the brokenhearted and bandages their wounds. So God wants for us to be healthy on the inside. And he wants us to be whole and complete in our minds and in our spirit. Now, on this side of heaven, we're never going to be completely pain-free. Right? Again, it's just part of life. We're never going to get to the point where our life is just angelic all the time and people mistake us for Jesus himself. Right? We're not going to get to that point. But what we can do is God works on us and chisels away at our heart, is we can get to a point where we've got way more love in our heart than we have hate. And we've got way more joy than sadness. And we've got way more peace than anxiety. And we've got way more contentment than envy. And there's way more kindness than there is resentment. And there's way more hope than there is despair. And there's way more generosity in us than there is jealousy. And generally speaking, we're way more whole than we are hurt. So if we want to see freedom and deliverance, if we want to see restoration, and we want to see healing in our communities, do not miss this. It starts with us. And so let me ask you a very pointed question. What do you need to be healed from? I'm sure you could point to a lot of individuals and say what they need to be healed from. Right? But what do you need to be healed from? Is it pride? Is it insecurity? Is it anger? Is it prejudice? Is it jealousy? Is it envy? What is it that you need to be healed from? And if you're like, well, I really can't think of something, ask the person next to you. I'm sure if they've known you for 20 seconds, they can find something that you need to be healed from. Because the reality is this. Every one of us have pain and hurt that is easy to suppress, easy to ignore. And I'm telling you, if we do not notice it, we're just self-unaware. It doesn't mean that it's not there. If the majority of the decisions you make on a day-to-day basis are driven by the approval and acceptance and validation of another person, like if your whole life is an audition to your family and friends to prove yourself, is it possible that something's broken inside? If you have a habit of lying or exaggerating so that people think better about you, and people think better of your accomplishments, or people think better of the things you've accumulated in life, is it possible that that need to exaggerate is driven by something that's broken? If every time you look in a mirror, all you see is the flaws and your mind goes negative every single time, right? If every time you step on a scale, all you can do is obsess about the numbers on that scale, right? Is it possible that there's something not right on the inside, that something needs to be fixed? On the flip side, if every time you look in the mirror, all you see is greatness and you never see any flaws, is it possible that something is broken? If you're on edge all the time and everybody irritates you and everybody makes you mad, is it possible something is broken? If you constantly gravitate toward doing things that you know are not healthy for you and they're not good for you and they don't move you forward, is it possible something is broken? What is it that you need to be healed from? Because God wants to heal us and he wants to free us and he wants to liberate us. But the longer the pain remains in our life and the deeper that pain goes, the longer it's going to take to heal. This is why it's easy to get cynical of this topic of healing, because I grew up in a culture where if you wanted to be healed, you just went to the front of the church auditorium at the end of a service, someone would pray for you, and you walk away believing God could heal you right there on the spot. And there are times where I believe God can miraculously do that, and he can free you from something that has trapped you for a long, long time. But generally speaking, most of the time, it is a process, and there are choices we need to make in the process. So do you want to be healed from the very thing that you need to be healed from? Choice number one, I must want to be healed. Now, this seems ridiculous, right? I must want to be healed. Who doesn't want to be healed? Right? There's a fascinating story recorded for us by a disciple of Jesus by the name of John. And it's about a time where Jesus is in Jerusalem and he's at a location known as the Pool of Bethesda. And this was used in ancient times to provide water for the temple. And I love it because to this day, you can literally go and visit the remains of the Pool of Bethesda. And there's so much that I wish we had time to get into because there's so much history here and so many things that just are fascinating. But in the story, one of the fascinating things is that crowds of individuals would come around the pool. And there would be individuals who were sick, people who had diseases, people who were crippled in some way. And they would hang out at the pool because the belief was that as the waters of the pool would move and they would get stirred up, people who went into the water could find healing. Now, we could debate all day long. Was this superstition? Was this urban legend, right? Was this something supernatural? And the truth is we don't really have any information about the pool's actual effects, but we do know that people believed it was beneficial for their health to get into the water. And here's what we read. One of the men lying there, so right there outside the Pool of Bethesda, had been sick for 38 years. And when Jesus saw him and knew he had been ill for a long time, he asked him, would you like to get well? It's almost an offensive question, right? The guy's been sick for 38 years. Of course he wants to be healed. Right? That's like saying to someone who's gone to marriage counseling for 3 years and the marriage isn't getting any better, well, do you really want your marriage to get better? That's like looking at someone who's been in recovery groups for years and years, but they just keep finding themselves trapped by this addiction. And you're just saying, well, do you really? Because if you really wanted to, you know, you could find, I mean, if you really wanted this to happen, you would make it happen. Well, the man responds to Jesus with, quite honestly, something that sounds like an excuse. He says to Jesus, well, I don't have anybody to help me get into the water. Which, when I read that, I just want to say, come on, brother. 38 years, if you wanted to get in that water, you would find a way to get in that water, right? You'd get a group of friends to get you in the water. You would hire somebody. You would call an Uber. You would do something to make sure that you get into that water. And there's no doubt, he probably could have taken way more initiative to get into the water. But when you've been in a condition for 38 years, you start to lose hope. At some point, you start to accept, this is my reality. When you've been overcome with shame for a long time, it's hard to break free from that shame. When you've carried guilt year after year after year, at some point, you just say, this is part of my condition. When you've carried anger for your entire life because of things that were done to you, man, at some point you just accept this is my reality. But Jesus asks, do you want to get well? And when it comes to the hurts and the pains in our life, I wish I could put my hand on every one of your shoulders. And I wish I could look you in the eye and ask you, do you really want to get well? Do you genuinely want to be healed? Because here's the reality. Being healed might mean you can no longer make excuses for your behavior. For some of us, being healed will mean we lose our right to retaliate and get even. For others of us, if we're really healed, it'll mean that we have to give up our comfort and take initiative to get help. For others, being healed might mean we have to take a completely different path in life than we've ever taken, and it's going to be really, really uncomfortable. A few years ago, a friend of mine who had just gone from unhealthy relationship to unhealthy relationship, and it was almost a joke how many unhealthy relationships they'd been into. They had gotten out of a very toxic relationship, and I just decided it was like time, and I had the courage, and I called them. And I said, all right, I know you're not with this person anymore. Can I just be a friend with you and be honest? And they said, absolutely. I said, I've watched you jump from unhealthy relationship to unhealthy relationship to unhealthy relationship. This is your moment. You're no longer in a relationship. And so here's what you have time to do. You have time to work on yourself. You have time to focus on yourself. You have time to care about yourself. And I am begging you, take 1 year, focus on yourself, get healthy, and then with the help of your friends and family, use wisdom in the next relationship because this has been a pattern in your life. Oh, thank you, Dave. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for speaking this truth into my life. 3 weeks later, they were in another bad relationship. So Jesus looks to this man who's been sick for 38 years and says, do you really want to be healed? And the man obviously does. And so Jesus has compassion on him and he heals him. Choice number 1, I must want to be healed. Choice number 2, I must look to God for healing. See, when our minds or our spirits are unhealthy, I don't need to tell you this. You already know this. We tend to look to things to ease our pain or to numb our pain. Now, to us, it sounds ridiculous that a guy thinks he could find healing by getting into a pool. Right? Is this just the way they thought about science all the time? I mean, getting into a bathwater isn't going to hurt anybody, right? So is this just what they thought 2,000 years ago? And so we just think it's ridiculous because we do the same thing. In order to find healing from loneliness, we jump into the pool of constant relationships. In order to find healing from insignificance, we go to the pool of busyness. In order to find healing from shame, we go to the pool of food and alcohol and porn or shopping. In order to find healing from a dad or mom who were never satisfied, we go to the pool of success. We go to the pool of workaholism. We live vicariously through our kids' accomplishments. And often the very things that we look to ease our pain or to numb our pain compound our pain. Jesus, in the most famous talk he ever gave, says this: God blesses those who are poor and realize their need for him, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. Now, I love this. Jesus is not talking about physical poverty. I think you'd agree. There are very few blessings in being poor physically. Jesus is talking about spiritual poverty, which is why some translations say, blessed are the poor in spirit. Spiritual poverty means that I'm lacking spiritually. As much as I want to be self-sufficient, as much as I want to be strong, the truth is I am weak. My life is unmanageable. I can't get control of my life. And Jesus says you are blessed and you are happy when you reach a point in your life where you recognize I can't heal myself and I can't fix myself and I can't mend the relationships and I can't quit the addiction and I can't put the pieces back together again. I am broken. So my question to you, as you recognize what needs to be healed, and you genuinely in your heart want to be healed, is do you see your need for God in the healing process? Or do you think you can fix this on your own? Have you convinced yourself that I am strong enough and I'm mature enough and I've seen enough that I can get a grasp on this without God? Do you want to be healed? Choice number 1, you must really want to be healed. Choice number 2, I must look to God for healing. Choice number 3, I must be honest about my pain. It's easy to just ignore our pain. It's easy to not talk about it. And we can go years without even thinking about it, and then one thing triggers it, and we realize, wow, it's a lot more powerful than I thought. Pain is God's way of letting us know that something is seriously wrong and needs our attention. So if your appendix burst and you felt no pain, you wouldn't know your body needed help, right? And then the toxins from your appendix would infect your abdominal cavity and would eventually kill you. Pain alerts us to our need for help. I remember as a kid thinking, man, it would be awesome if I didn't feel no pain. Right? There's actually a disorder called congenital insensitivity to pain disorder. It is the inability to feel pain. So I could be like, dude, punch me in the face. I didn't feel that. Do it again. Do it again, right? I mean, it would just be an absolute ridiculous thing. And I would think, in my mind, well, that'd be a great thing to have. It'd be a horrible thing to have because there'd be so many things could be wrong with you and you would never know. So when you feel pain, when I feel pain, we can't ignore it. We can't suppress it. We can't push it down. And the temptation is to say, it's not a big deal. Temptation is to say, well, I don't want to talk about it. What's wrong? Nothing. Nothing. And then we let it build up. Do not miss this. True freedom is found in dealing with our pain. Often in life, I have to feel worse in order to feel better. So if I'm in a relationship and things are not good, I have to acknowledge the pain inside of me. I've been feeling rejected. I've been feeling isolated. I've been feeling taken advantage of. I have to address the pain inside of me. Then I have to have the painful conversation, awkward conversation that none of us like to have in relationships in order for it to get better. Right? If I want to get promoted at my job, it's likely that at some point I got to have be in a painful conversation where somebody tells me the things I need to work on, the things that I thought I was awesome at, and they're saying you're not as awesome as you think, right? And then I have to go through the pain of trying to develop new skills. Things have to get bad often before they get better. So Once I identify what I need to be healed from, if there's going to be healing, choice number 1, I must want to be healed. Choice number 2, I must look to God for healing. And choice number 3, I must be honest about my pain. Finally, number 4, I must humble myself and take steps to healing. You can genuinely want to be healed. You can sincerely believe that only God can heal you. You can truly be honest about your pain. But if you are not willing, and I am not willing to humble ourselves enough to take steps to healing, we won't be healed. And what sucks is nobody can force us to humble ourselves. People can humiliate us, but nobody can force us to be humble. Humility is a choice. James, a disciple of Jesus, writes this: humble yourselves before the Lord. So this is like an action that we decide. And when our hearts are full of pride, you know this is true. We try to write prescriptions for the pain in our life. We say things like, well, if they apologize first, if he does this or if she does that, then I know I'm going to be able to move forward. Right? We look to the wisdom that people who love us and care about us have given us, and we completely reject it because we want to write our own prescriptions. Let me ask you this. What if God isn't going to heal you or heal me on our own terms? There's a story that's recorded in the book of 2 Kings. It's about a guy named Naaman, very respected leader, captain of the Syrian army. And in this story, Naaman suffers from an incurable and contagious disease called COVID-19. No, it's called leprosy. That's what it's called, right? And even though it's incurable, Naaman believes that there is a chance God is going to heal him. And so through a series of circumstances, he ends up at the home of a Jewish prophet by the name of Elisha. And he goes to this home because he believes Elisha is going to pray for him, and there's a chance that God could miraculously heal him on the spot. So he shows up to Elisha's house, he rings the doorbell, but instead of being greeted by Elisha, one of Elisha's assistants comes out of the house and says to Naaman, if you want to be healed, you need to go to the Jordan River and you need to wash yourself 7 times in the Jordan River. And if you do that, you will be healed. In fact, here's how Naaman actually responds. But Naaman went away angry. So messenger says, here's what you need to do. Naaman goes away angry and said, I thought that he would surely come out to me and stand and call on the name of the Lord his God, wave his hand over the spot and cure me of my leprosy. Like, I thought it would be easier than this. I thought God would do something miraculous. I thought Elisha would come out and there would be a laser show and there would be music and dancers and it would be really dramatic and fun. And I would say, woohoo, God has healed me. You're telling me to go wash in the Jordan River 7 times? Do you know how many times those 2 words have stood between me and my healing? I thought. God, you see the pain in here, but I thought it would be a much quicker process to get past this pain. Or God, I thought you would move on my spouse's heart to apologize first. Or I thought that you were capable of just removing this magically and me never having to do anything. I thought. And the tendency for me, and I'm guessing the same is true with you, is after we've tried for a while, we just start giving up. Because God's not moving as quick as we thought he should move. Now, thankfully, Naaman's entourage challenges him. And one of them actually says, come on, man, if Elisha told you, you've got leprosy. If Elisha told you to do something difficult, you know you would do it. But you're all mad. Your pride's gotten the best of you because you don't want to go down the Jordan River. You think it's undignified and to somehow go and just wash yourself 7 times. Come on, man, your pride's gotten the best of you. And Naaman listens to them, thankfully, and he does what Elisha tells him to do. He goes down the Jordan River, washes 7 times, and he's healed, which is crazy because in being healed, he realized this is not magic, man. This had to be God. This is miraculous. And I'm just going to tell you, if you and I are to find healing for the pain and the hurt inside our hearts, it's going to require a lot of humility. It requires humility to ask for help. It requires humility to admit the path we've been going down isn't leading us in the direction we thought it was going. It takes humility to apologize. It takes humility to talk to a therapist. I love this quote by Craig Rochelle. He says, the difference between where you are and where God wants you to be may be the painful decision you refuse to make. So, when I identify an area of my life that needs healing, something I need to be delivered from, something I need to be freed from, an area that needs restoration, I have some choices to make. Choice number one, I must want to be healed. Choice number two, I must look to God for healing. Choice number three, I must be honest about my pain. And choice number four, I must humble myself and take steps to healing. And as healing occurs, we become stronger in the process. As healing occurs, we stop seeing ourselves as victims and we start seeing ourselves as survivors. As healing occurs, we have the opportunities to become a blessing to others and to our community. Because think about this, the more we are at peace internally, the easier it is for us to be peacemakers in our community. The more joy I have internally, the easier it is for me to bring joy into every environment I go into. The more hopeful I am internally, the easier it is for me to be a voice of hope without feeling like I'm a fraud or a fake, right? The more that I'm healed and you're healed of the prejudice inside our heart, meaning prejudging people for whatever reason, the more we're able to work towards unity in our community. But it starts with us. 12 years ago, right before starting Great Lakes Church, I had a fallout with a really good friend of mine. And I'm not saying this to be funny. If you heard the story, I promise you'd say, Dave, you're 100% right. He's 100% wrong. That's just the reality, right? And of course, he would get up here and probably have his own version of the story. But there were some things he did were very, very wrong. We had this fallout. And he knew I was starting a church. And he said to me, Dave, I need to know that we're going to be okay. I need to know that someday we're going to have a friendship again, and that it's not going to be completely broken over some of these things that I've done. And I said to him, yes, there will be restoration, but I'm not even close to ready. And it took me probably 3 years before I could feel like my heart was whole with that individual. Now, if I decided I wasn't going to work on it, I was just never going to think about it, I was just going to try to move on, do you think at some level that would affect me as a pastor, as a friend, as a husband, as a dad, without me even realizing it? Well, yeah, because the more we do this in life, the good news is I moved past it. Bad news is I've had a lot of painful experiences since then. And I haven't done a great job of working through all of those painful experiences. And so I've got to ask the same question, what do I need to be healed from? And am I willing to go through the process? And it's easy for you to push back, I know, and say, Dave, come on, you don't know my story. If you knew the abuse that I went through, if you knew what I experienced, I just on this side of heaven am not going to receive healing. I'm telling you, your view of God is too small. God does the impossible. Nothing is impossible with God. He wants to heal you. He wants to free you. He wants to restore you. He wants to deliver you. And sometimes it's a very long process. So let me close with this. If you've never made a decision to follow Jesus, maybe today's your day. Maybe you're watching online, maybe you're sitting at one of our campuses, you're sitting in the room with me, you've never made a decision to follow Jesus. That's the starting point for this. And I just want to give you that opportunity to just in your minds, in your hearts, you don't have to pray anything out loud. I'm not going to have you come to the front of a room or in your heart, just say, today's my day. I want to become a follower of Jesus. And what I do ask for those in our physical environments, and we can even put an online connection card right on our online campus, but there is on our physical campuses, there's a connection card in our seats where we can just say, I'm making a first-time decision to follow Jesus. And that gives us an opportunity to pray for you. And it gives us an opportunity to be excited for you and to know that God's doing a work in your life. But I think that's a great starting point for all of us if we've not done that. Another starting spot, or another step for us, I shouldn't say starting spot, but a step for us in this process of just saying, man, I just want to continually humble myself before God. I want to continue to go on this process of healing is if you've never made a decision to be water baptized, maybe you've let fear hold you back, maybe you've let insecurity hold back, maybe you've let the fear of I'm not good enough hold you back. In a couple of weeks, we're going to have a water baptism. And so what I'd encourage you to do if you've never been water baptized is on your connection card. You can just literally in the other section put water baptism. And we will send you information on water baptism. And we want to be a part of celebrating with you, whether it's at a Weekends on Wednesday service or it's at one of our physical campuses on Sunday mornings, Kenosha or Racine. But that's going to happen the first week of November. And it would be the greatest joy of our life to baptize you. You do not have to be an angel to be baptized because you will never be an angel. It's a reality. Baptism is saying, man, I'm indicating that my old life is dead and buried when I go into the water, and when I come up out of the water, that God has resurrected me to new life. That new life isn't seen automatically. It's God chiseling away day after day, week after week, year after year to make us more and more like him. We work with him in the process by saying we really want to be healed. And we look first to you. And we are very open and honest about our pain. And we humble ourselves and make the steps to do it. Let me pray for you. Heavenly Father, thank you that you are the healer, you are the restorer, you are the God that delivers. I pray where there is hurt, where there is pain that is so deep and so raw and so, it's been around for so long. I pray, God, help every one of us identify the steps we can begin to take to find healing. God, help all of us get to a place where we can truly humble ourselves to do what we need to do so that we can be agents of change and agents of healing in our community everywhere we go. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.